I'm not sure if this is going to work in terms of a video, but I want to try it out anyway. I don't know how the quality is going to be of the audio, but so the thing is, Donkey Kong Country. That's what we are going to talk about, and I want to focus on the explosions in Donkey Kong Country, the theme of explosions. What does that mean? Because I think there are sort of themes of explosions that I want to do some weird like anthropology about, because I don't quite understand why would there be themes of explosions. And for example, how does this theme constellate? Let's see. It's as if the explosion, the idea of an explosion, is common in this game. You have exploding barrels, you have barrels that shoot you like a gun, and so on. But that in and of itself is not that interesting, because video games as a whole have a lot of explosions, right? You got explosions in Super Mario games, you got explosions everywhere, right? Video games are very generally like they are very action oriented, I would say, generally, and so there is a tradition, at least, of explosive violence in video games. And so that's no surprise that there would be explosions in video games. But I'm interested in how they're like thematized in Donkey Kong Country, because again, one way in which they appear are barrels. And that's sort of intriguing, because why would a barrel shoot you out like a gun, for example? The barrels that shoot you out, they are accompanied by a certain like explosive sound effect when they shoot you, as if this is a gun that's shooting you. Now, of course, I think barrels were used as containers for gunpowder, probably, at some point in history. Maybe they still are. And so it maybe makes sense that a barrel would be a container for gunpowder and therefore associated to explosive potential. But at the same time, you have those other kind of barrels that literally just explode. They literally just have an explosion within them. The barrel breaks and collapses and becomes an explosion in some way. So the barrel is associated to the explosion in this way. And I'm wondering what that means, because there are a few sort of little details in this game that point towards explosions as a theme and barrels as a theme. Explosions as a theme, I would say, is very subtly maybe implemented in the intro to the game, because in the intro you get Donkey Kong throwing an explosive at Cranky Kong. Now, I don't think it's actually explosive. It's not actually an explosive. It seems to be he's throwing his like cassette player down at Cranky, and the impact causes an explosion. But in any case, no matter what, Cranky retaliates with an actual explosion. He comes back on screen with an explosive barrel and throws it. And that's sort of what causes the game to begin, is that sort of explosion between Cranky Kong's throwing the barrel of explosives at Donkey Kong, and then that exploding on Donkey Kong. And that's sort of what makes the game begin and ends the intro. Another explosion that see, that sort of opens a few doors in some way, because that theme there in the intro is some sort of a conflict between Cranky Kong and Donkey Kong. There's a conflict of generations, you could say. The old Donkey Kong, using music from his generation, right, turning the sort of gramophone record round. Donkey Kong with music from his generation. He brings like the stereo cassette player thing down, and that is like a war between these two time periods. Like, it's my time now. Now it's time for the new stuff. I'm going to bring that stuff down. It explodes you out of the way. And now Donkey Kong, me, is on top of the Donkey Kong structure from the original arcade game instead of Cranky Kong. Cranky Kong now is no longer... It's also as a way of saying, dear player, this game you're playing is a Donkey Kong game, but Donkey Kong used to be Cranky Kong. Donkey Kong belongs to an old generation. It's an arcade game. It's old. The graphics aren't like 3D in this way. Now, here we're introducing a new game. This is new and sort of more adapted to our current time in terms of the technological capabilities and the themes, the art of it or something. And so that's the conflict of the beginning of the game, and is resolved or climaxed when Cranky Kong throws a barrel back at Donkey Kong. That's one theme. The thing is then that I said explosions are a theme and barrels are a theme. Barrels are a theme, right? Why? Why are barrels a theme in this game? Why are there barrels in this game? What does barrels have to do with Donkey Kong? What do they have to do with Donkey Kong in any way? It's a structure of wood. You put stuff in it. Why is that structure part of Donkey Kong? So that's a question to answer. Okay. Now, however, at the beginning of the game begins with Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong having another kind of these clashes as the one that Cranky Kong has with Donkey Kong at the beginning in the intro. A generational crash of sorts, because Donkey Kong has told Diddy Kong to do something for him, and Diddy Kong is not 100% happy with that. Diddy Kong does wish he was like Donkey Kong. He seems to express that, or the game somehow seems to express that in some way. Diddy Kong seems to look up to Donkey Kong, but is angry with him because Donkey Kong has made him do stuff that seems unfair to Diddy Kong. Right? Donkey Kong never gets to do the hard work. The hard work always goes to Diddy Kong. Diddy Kong's there doing the hard work and sort of rejecting it, being angry about it. And it's as if this anger towards the hard work brings about the arrival of the game. Because in a thematic sort of way, Diddy Kong's anger seems to translate to a stormy night. And this stormy night is the stormy night where the bananas are stolen and King K. Rool arrives. King K. Rool arrives almost because of this stormy night, so to speak. It's as if the lightning and the storm coming down are also the Kremlings arriving. This is some of what I wanted to talk in the previous video, where I was trying to connect those two things in some way. And I think so. I think it's thematic. It's due to the choice of words in the manual. It's due to, I think, the way in which the emotions of the characters seem to correlate to the events that arrive and reach them. I'm not entirely sure how to speak about that now, but that's sort of an intuition I get, is that the beginning of the game is about Diddy Kong having some sort of clash, generational clash with Donkey Kong, that then causes some sort of enemy to come in who stands for this clash in some way, stands for the conflict between them in some way. And what's sort of curious is that this arrival, the clash between the generations, arrives in the form of the Kremlings, who are sort of mistaken for the storm by the manual, at least. The manual describes Diddy as being a little paranoid and seeing enemies everywhere. It seems to be that this is due to the storm, because it's a dark night, but there's lightning, and lightning is like induces fear, it seems, in Diddy. And you get sudden flashes of lightning here and there, and you don't know if those flashes of lightning are like someone approaching or whether it's just lightning. And then there's this sort of intermediate place between lightning and the Kremlings. And so, of course, Diddy starts seeing like eyes in the darkness and things, are those Kremling eyes? Or, is that lightning? Or are these movements in the forest just the storm moving everything and moving the bushes? Or is someone actually moving in the bushes? These sorts of questions start to emerge in Diddy Kong's mind. And Donkey Kong doesn't have to deal with any of this because Donkey Kong's asleep in his hut and avoids all this work that has caused these sort of fearful thoughts to come into Diddy Kong's mind. And these fearful thoughts seem to be, again, represented by King K. Rool. King K. Rool seems to be almost like a representation of these thoughts coming into Diddy Kong's mind. And they come into Diddy Kong's mind at the same time as the lightning is hitting him in some way, at the same time as the lightning. And so, in that sense, lightning and explosion also seem to come at the same time or go around together in some way, because lightning is also a fiery explosion in some way, right? It's a kind of a blast of electric energy, and therefore an explosive sort of hit, wham, like it is something that arrives suddenly and emits a lot of fiery kind of energy. Now, so, right, I don't know, that's all I'm going to argue. I'm going to argue that lightning and explosions are similar in some way, and that therefore the intro to the game, let's say the actual Diddy Kong hiding in the bushes intro that is talked about in the manual, is also somehow about an explosion that is related to a clash between generations, a clash between Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong.